Mike from around the world, are you there? Oh, boy. Mike? Oh, I lost him. Mike from around the world, are you there?
Pastor Paul, I'm right here. How you doing this evening?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. You're coming in loud and clear. Wonderful. I'm doing great tonight, Mike. I really am. I'm preaching up a storm in here.
All right, yeah, because I think they're, are they trying to make us walk the line or something? What is that?
You're going. That sounds like Johnny Cash, but yes, they're trying to make us. They're trying to make us walk the line. Mike, tonight I started out with I talked a lot about several things, but the dragon. You know, I just want to put it this way: 3 weeks ago, President Xi was able to broker a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Then the next week, he went to Moscow and put together a big deal with Russia. Then this week, he's come forward with a peace agreement, a peace arrangement that he says that between Russia and Ukraine, Zelensky likes it, Putin is willing to do it, and Macron is embracing it. It looks like he may be the peacemaker. Is this the dragon in the Bible? Is he taking over? Is he taking charge? Who is this dragon? What is China really all about?
Well, you know what? It's not easy to swallow, but our bluff has been called, obviously. You know, a lot of people think about the USA and they get, a lot of people are patriotic behind the USA regarding its capabilities, right? A lot of stories on the internet regarding its capabilities. You know, those stories about special this and special that, right? So we face one of two things here. Either the entirety of the USA, and we could even exclude Biden and his cabinet, because they're power members in the USA that keep the world operational. Either everybody has turned their back on foreign policy and world events, right? Or our bluff has been called. And
Wow.
China actually has some legitimate intelligence. And because they saw what we can and cannot do, they finally made their move. They're making their, move, especially with this Saudi Arabia deal. Because this feuding between Saudi and Iran, that goes back to, 79.
Yes. Yes.
You're looking at President Mohammed Khatami, remember him?
Yes, I do.
He had that outreach toward the Gulf, but that's when the Saudi and Iran influence began to start to break down. Then, of course, 97, Prince Abdullah, 99, economy meets with Crown Prince Abdullah, Saudi Arabia. They had that stuff going on. That was the first meeting since 1979. Iran, Saudi Arabia totally broke down right after that security pact that they had. That totally fell apart. Ahmadinejad, he came to power, and of course he was a hardliner against that was back in 2011. They tried to intercede quite a bit between the two. That was unsuccessful. The U.S. has been unsuccessful in brokering any type of peace or real solid peace between the two. But here comes President Xi at a very critical time in America. And, everybody starts holding hands. And that certainly is an eye-opener.
Yeah.
So they're looking at him and his capabilities. What we really have is the Middle East, because the USA has reneged on so many deals concerning foreign policy. Half of that starts because we switch administration and foreign policy changes every time we have a different president. So we have no consistency with any type of relationship with the Middle East, period. Because every time we go from Republican to Democrat, Democrat to Republican, everything falls apart. And so, but China has been sitting back. They have been building. They have been perfecting their craft, their relationships around the world, while the USA and the media has targeted propaganda against China, right? They have most Americans, a lot of people, well, I can't say the UK, but in Europe believing one thing, when in fact, China has been doing doing other things outside of the media that we know nothing about. You know, the USA knows that people know nothing about, and then they get shocked by what's happening now. So our bluff has been called big time.
Wow. So in other words, they have they have been studying us so closely over and have been really manipulating us, manipulating politicians, manipulating bureaucrats, manipulating diplomats. They've been operating in manipulating business people at high level business folks. They've been involved in lobbying congressional people. I mean, so let's think about it. Technologically, they've learned a lot from us. They've stolen a lot of technology from us. And they've got themselves in a position now where they feel like they might have the upper hand. Do you
Oh, they
sense
more
that?
than feel it. Yeah, they more than feel it. The USA, when we operate with different nations, we make promises, right? We try to make peace through compromise. China does not do that. China has taken this steady stance over the years. Sometimes people like them, sometimes they don't. But now these other countries are realizing at least they know who they're dealing with. When it comes to the USA, because we change administrations so much and representatives, they don't know who they're dealing with, right? Just like Israel. Israel had peace with President Trump. It becomes shaky with President Biden. So they don't know who they're dealing with. And of course, you're going to take comfort in somebody at least you know where they stand, right? And that's been the case here, because the USA is we negotiate by way of peace to take command and control of a great many assets around the world, because we are that top country everybody look to for aid, instruction, guidance, just a host of things. But since the USA has been fighting internally, right, we've been ineffective in those tasks. So we did this to ourselves, and China just simply stepped up and took advantage of it. Now, here's the real disturbing part. Can we not notice this? Can some of the civil servants, because I believe this, I don't believe presidents are presidents, but the real power of any government comes from those who have a career in government, not those publicly elected,
Right.
but those who have that 9 to 5 job, so to speak. They are civil servants. They stay there. They control policy. They let everybody see things or not. But they're not doing anything either.
It,
And by way of new policies and laws, because the laws have been tampered with, amended, they're shaky, immoral. There's hardly any character in what goes forward. Some of it's been ludicrous. I hate to say that. That's a bad thing to say, but some of the laws have been absolutely ludicrous. And these countries they have no confidence in the USA like they used to. It was being established, but of course, all that went away because people didn't like what was being done by way of governance. So now, you know, it's everything is hitting the fan. And China's technology, Pastor Paul, let's put it this way.
okay.
China has, let's look at space quick. We have probably around 5,600 satellites in space, right?
All right.
The USA has a great majority of those, about, I'd say a little over 3,400, right? China went from 1992 to this present date. They've had 674 launches.
All right. That's a
So
lot.
they have a lot of satellites up there.
That's a lot.
But the technology in those satellites is remarkable. Okay, that'll make any nation back off. Number one, China launched a remote AI system platform, right? That can commandeer the code and chip sequences and languages of satellites that are already up there, causing them to be spy satellites for China. So they have remote AI operational platforms in space. We do not.
Wow.
We don't have that. Okay, that's one.
That's
But
one.
we can't stop
Okay.
there. They have
So now
they
that's
have
a
the
big.
RKA
That's
type
a big.
devices.
That's a big technological advantage over us, then, Mike. Continue.
Well, yeah, that. But we have something else. Something that made probably they didn't know if this device existed on these balloons, but China has a relativistic, well, let's just call it a microwave weapon. Okay, it's on their aircraft, it's on their ships, it's also in some of their probes, weather balloons, and everything else. And we didn't know if they had an RKA device on that, on some of those balloons. And you just can't shoot down. You can't target something with a microwave device, because if you do that, you expose part of your weapons platforms, in which, you know, these machines that China has, they can take out anything. If you start to fire a weapon, you have to get a lock on it somehow.
Yeah.
They can lock on to that lock. They can see the waves coming out trying to lock on to them. They can target and triangulate that, disrupt it, and then burn out the devices sent that lock in the first place. And so they didn't want to probe them too much without knowing exactly what was on board that balloon. But that balloon, in fact, just as we called it, they were collecting intelligence. And everything changed after those balloons. So China had that, but they also have Earth observation satellites. They have, I believe it's 13 of those. They have Earth intelligence collections platforms. Of course, they have the ChinaSat class satellites, the AppStar. Those are communications satellites, constellation of 44 navigational satellites, 48 additional targeting satellites. They're the ones that threaten to knock out Starlink. And even Elon Musk knows they're not bluffing, right? They're not,
right.
There have been demonstrations already from China in space, and no one did a thing back to them, right?
Wow.
They have they have reconnaissance satellites. The I believe it's the Xi'an 33s, the 3-01 type. The other reconnaissance is Wingxing, and the Fan Hoi, that's another type or class satellite. So they have all these satellites out there. A lot of them are dedicated to the People's Liberation Army and the People's Liberation Army Navy Surface Force. So yeah, they have quite a few things. Plus, they have a Gen 7 fighter, a Gen 6 fighter, and some advanced technology we're unable to track.
Do they have also hypersonic missiles like Russia?
Yeah, but theirs are a bit faster.
Faster.
Russia has hypersonic technology, right?
Yeah, right.
They have a lot. But China has an ability, if they can see it, if they can see the circuitry, if they can hear a theory, they have an ability to build a weapons platform or copy that system in less than a year. They've done this to too many different, every aircraft we have, they have matched it. They've also added things to it, right? So that's just not good. Their Navy force is bigger than ours.
Wow.
So we're talking about,
we're
not talking about raggedy boats either. You're talking about frontline warships, commissioned warships. They have 425 frontline warships, right? That number does not include support and auxiliary ships, or that doesn't even include the submarines. So on the surface, they have 425. We have less than 300.
So we're already outnumbered on warships.
Yes, we are.
By China. By China.
Yes, we are.
Now, how did that happen? Because we were way ahead of them. I mean, have we been declining in warships, or decommissioning, and not doing?
No, we've not been doing, Pastor. We've had a lot of things because the public military is locked up dealing with Congress and funding and all these things, because they've been fighting in the White House.
Yeah.
It's damaging the country. What people see on television, and they see all the protests and everything else, that's fine to exercise certain rights that they have. But I'm telling you, these disputes are damaging the country far beyond the point. It's getting beyond the point of repair. You have a lot of people that say, well, we have a lot of secret space tech. Yes, we do. But those are private companies that have these devices. And those private companies constitute the military-industrial complex, or what's called the military-industrial complex. That's nothing more than the corporate world doing things outside of the eyes of the public and, off the books of the government, for the government, right?
So you're saying,
let's just say for a special type government.
I mean,
but they're not going to bring that equipment to bear.
Yeah,
they're not doing that.
So you're saying Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Halliburton, some of the big boys that are got huge multi-billion. I mean, SpaceX. These are the folks that have got multi-billion-dollar contracts. They spend this money, they make technologies, but they're the ones really that also push for war. I mean, they really do. They're
Well, that's why. That's why you have a congressman pass Paul that has they don't make that much a year, but they're living in $1 million homes. That's
right.
Impossible.
It's impossible.
Right? They don't make that much money. So what they do is they these lobbyists will come in and say, hey, if you pass this law that benefits us, we're going to give you kickbacks and this, that, and the other. Weapons contracts with the military. I hate to break it to everybody, but this is how congressmen, that's how they get through life, through those weapons, like the war in the Ukraine. They want this war in the Ukraine because what are we doing? We're selling weapons, but those people are getting rich off those weapons. Now that's just the top. That's your the elected officials. The military-industrial complex is a bit different. For example, Elon Musk. People know about certain ships that have been shown to the public. They do not know what defense contracts he has. We're talking about defense contracts covered under the black budget. People, they don't know that.
They don't know, no.
We have high forms of technology, but they're under the control of individuals who will not agree to have them utilized in a war for military use or something like that. That's the problem. That's the big problem. And so China has called her bluff. Now, China has matched just about everything. And if people think that China's underdeveloped or something like that, they've got a mistake. For example, they have an anti-weapon to all of Russia's hypersonics, and we don't.
Wow. So again, when we say the dragon is getting in position to take charge militarily now and technologically, you're saying that they really have the advantage over us. Diplomatically, let's talk about that, because President Xi, I mean, we used to see the Americans always leading the way diplomatically in the world. We got China putting the Iranians and the Saudis together. We got China striking this huge deal the next week in Russia. And we got China now getting ready to broker a major peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. He's even got Emmanuel Macron of France in on it now. Where is the U.S.? Is China now? Is the world looking to China for leadership? Is that what's happening?
Of course they are. They lost confidence in the USA. It's kind of like our elections, right? You get a president that starts messing up and people pay the price. No one wants that guy in office, right?
No.
You know what we did? We started the wrong people were pushing a perverted type of democracy. Countries paid the ultimate price. That's one thing that's never publicized, is what certain individuals have pushed on other nations that have almost destroyed them, almost just totally taken them down. And so that's not discussed. What they call democracy right now is not the democracy I knew, when I initialized my servitude of government. There's two different things. Now it's a highly perverted type of democracy. It's some new age weird democracy. And King Charles is instigating even more deals with China on one side of his mouth, and then he's rebuking him on the other side of his mouth. In fact, that guy's making a lot of calls for the world. As soon as he came into power, well, that's when everything started spiraling out of control.
Wow. And you said that when the new king came into power, that there would be major things, new declarations, new procedures, global procedures. Is that
That's right.
Have you seen it already happening?
Oh, it's underway. In 2023, that promises to be a big one because, well, it's kind of like the Commonwealth Games and some of the ceremonies they have with the Commonwealth Games. If anybody is familiar with that, that's where most of your 17 ruling countries, they have something that's similar to the Olympics. But they have a ceremony before that in which the entire crowd participates, right? I encourage everybody to watch it. Look up Commonwealth Games 2022, 2023, and watch that thing, because Pastor Paul, they have Moloch in it. They have the Tower of Babel in it. They have Satan coming to earth by way of an explosion in space, and you have all these people. They get these crystals, these young people who start praying to the bull. They make peace with the bull, and then they become one with the bull, right, to control that bull. And that's what they're doing now. That was these are open ceremonies that they have with selective individuals, but King Charles oversees all of it. He oversees all of it.
Wow.
He's the one. They couldn't have that without him. They could not install that without him. Things right now are being installed. So we're seeing things on a natural level, on a supernatural level, whether people realize this or not. The people that run this world, they trust in Satan. They trust in Lucifer.
Yes,
period.
That's true.
They utilize his giving of wisdom, just like we would seek the Holy Spirit. They seek those spirits that are under him. They even show in that ceremony, they show women, right, in enslaved to pull this bull, who will be freed, and they'll bow down. Everybody will bow down and worship this bull. They have all the nations included, even Israel included. So they're doing something right now. It's one of those
Where
things.
Where is this going on at? Where's this happening at, Mike?
That's going to be in the UK. That's
wow.
in the UK. But I know that 2023 is a declarative year for these guys. There are lots of organizations and people. They're getting a door ready. That door that I keep talking about is about to open. It's going to open. And well, just to confirm that, China, speaking about their technology, of course, they have a special project, right? In fact, it is the project that allowed people in the USA and those at CERN to advance what they were doing. China has something called an artificial sun project, right? They have had at least 13 contributions, 13 or 14 contributions to science.
Wow.
Over the last 5 years. They're the ones who made it possible for CERN to make a discovery of discoveries just recently, right? So you could say that CERN has found the standard model of how physics works probably won't be relevant in a few months, in just a few months. It's not going to be relevant. They've gone a lot deeper. They have found what they were looking for, and they're bringing all of that to the forefront. They will have experiments and everything else. They're going to get exactly what they were looking for because they found it. They made a major discovery that promises to change everything. Because think about something, CERN has made no contributions whatsoever to science, yet you have all these nations, 22, that pour money into CERN all the time. 21 member states, 4 observer states. They pour money into CERN all the time. I mean, lots of money. And it's a mandate. Now, all that money is coordinated in Pine Gap. Why would that be coordinated in Pine Gap?
Pine Gap's supposed to be, intelligence. I mean,
that's a CIA
deal, right?
In that place. So what do they have to do with CERN, right? What's going on here? Well, I think people can see through that, but we really have a situation here where prophecy is quickly unfolding.
Right.
It's setting up to be just as it's read.
Is China involved with CERN?
Yes. Oh, yes, they are. All countries are involved with CERN.
Yeah.
Right? Even the ones that we, regardless if they're military enemies or political enemies, they're all contributing to CERN. Now, China contributes a lot of knowledge and know-how to CERN, right? You probably won't hear that publicly because of pride and ego, but that's just how it is. This latest breakthrough dealing with fusion, that came from China.
Okay.
That came from
Well,
China.
they're the
That
ones working on that sun
artificial sun project.
right.
Yep. They're going to develop. Well, let's put it this way: they've had major breakthroughs, right?
Yep.
That power source is more reliable and will likely be more efficient than nuclear fusion could ever be.
Hmm.
You're talking about endless energy, endless.
Yeah. This is a whole new energy source that we can really change. It's a game changer, and China wants to be the ones controlling that. I mean, this is a serious game changer.
China has their own. They got their own.
Yeah.
They have their. They have. Have you seen that facility they have?
I've not seen it. I mean, I hear about it, but
it is.
Explain
it makes CERN look like a bathroom. How about that?
Wow.
It makes CERN look like
Is it all underground also? What China?
No, well, a big portion of it is above ground. The rest is underground, deep underground. So it's a large facility. It basically it's almost like having New York City, right?
Yeah.
Be right there, and you're talking about a lot of people are running or operating that facility. Of course, they never come out because China does people differently. That's
Right.
very oppressive place.
Now, Mike, let's talk about also China manipulation with the Middle East. Let's talk about Israel tonight. As you know, has been under a siege. I mean, there's rockets flying now by Hezbollah into Israel. There's rockets flying out of Gaza into Israel. And China has just brokered a big deal where they put the Iranians and the Saudis back together in a miraculous peace arrangement. So Israel right now, Benjamin Netanyahu was told by Joe Biden, no, don't come to Washington. I haven't invited you to the White House. I mean, is Israel on an island right now? What's going on?
Yeah, they're well, you can see them being isolated on all sides. They're openly, their policies are rejected by the rest of the world, including America. What the way they function is rejected by most. There are people right now, what was it? 3 weeks ago, I was saying about people in Israel that should not be there. And they are in high positions, just waiting. They're just waiting to attempt to destroy Israel from the inside. There are spies in that camp already. And these guys they're ready. They're really ready. It's almost like they're looking for some external command.
Well, I heard now, Mike. I got some information that there was almost a military coup. That the generals were ready to take Netanyahu out of power if he did not back off this judicial reform, and so he did. Did you have any? Is there any intelligence?
Well, yeah, they were, because they. That's why some of the promises that came from Benjamin Netanyahu, and people said, "What?" He basically had to promise a security force, which is essentially a new branch of their military, right? He had to promise that to an individual to keep that from happening. Plus, he had to backpedal on some of his ideas that he was going forward with. Here's the bad part, though. Because he did not do what he initially set out to do, and people fought that, right?
Yeah.
There are going to be consequences. He came in to do what was, when lives are at stake, there's always someone who has to make that call. It's going to make themselves look terrible. It's going to ruin their career, but they're doing it for the sake of the people, right? There's always a person like that. Benjamin Netanyahu is that person. He selected the people over his career, and they almost stopped him with a lot of bloodshed. That's the only reason he gave in, right? Not necessarily because of the coup, but because they were threatening to destroy, to kill people, to kill the opposition. And that wouldn't have worked out. They would have taken his power and then killed those or jailed those loyal to him, which happens to be a pretty large number of individuals. Part of the populace. That would almost be like in America if someone threatened to lock up the entire Republican base, right?
Wow.
It'd be the same thing.
Yeah.
So of course he kind of backed off that.
Let's talk about the president. I mean, the stone steps, of course. You revealed to us Trump was the man to be escorted down the stone steps. Tuesday, we've seen it. He was arraigned. He was arrested. He stood before a judge, and they're going to continue on. 34 felony charges against the former president.
37.
37. All
yeah, the
right.
count's going up.
The count's going up.
Yeah.
So Mike, this is not good for this country. I mean, what does this all mean, and where will this go?
Well, about the stone steps, it almost looked like that it was going to initialize, right? But it wasn't set up quite right. I think, I was very relieved, right? There was no big breakout at that point.
Yeah.
Here's why I say that, because we know that December's coming. We know it's coming. We know that they're going to do what they're going to do in December.
Yeah.
In January.
Yep.
That could be pretty bad if we make it to that point, because there are, 2 other courts. The same thing that just happened with 2 other courts, and so something could happen prior to December, unfortunately.
Are you talking about the Supreme Court might step in?
No. These are
more charges,
other cases against him from other states.
Okay.
They're starting to pop up. Right?
Yeah.
They're starting to pop up. What they're trying to do was, I hate the situation, Pascal, because there are going to be a lot of traitors, right?
Yeah. Yes.
There are going to be a lot of traitors. They smile now because President Trump controls a Republican base. If that's ever compromised, well, we already know that half those people that are speaking up for him are going to testify against him or try and fry him.
Right. In the end,
that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But this situation itself is causing lots of friction. I mean, lots of friction. The conversations people are having, right? They believe America is gone. They really believe this. And we're not talking about people on the street. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something else. And coordinated efforts are taking place to try and not so much establish any type of peace, but to use existing powers to make a difference, to really wipe out certain halves or portions or quadrants of the government that should not be there. And when I start talking, you're going to hear terms like espionage.
Yep.
You're going to hear some major terms used. The infighting is about to escalate beyond belief. And it's just a very sad situation. And every time they tend to want to prosecute President Trump, the people are going to get worse and worse, right? The militias are already starting to rise up because the situation is not going away. It's actually building, right? They wanted it to go away. In fact, when the indictment came out, it surprised quite a few people. Quite a few people were shocked that indictment came out. They didn't think it was going to come out, and it did. And some of the prosecutions are going to be the same way, and there will be major reprisals. I'm just glad it didn't take place that day. The violence level was not there, but you can see it's almost like something is holding it back. It's almost like a season, a reprieve or something was given just for a moment, though, because I don't see it going away, right? It's almost like it's been timed out for a month or two. That's about it. But we know that tensions are going to continue to rise within the USA, and problems will erupt from this, and people are going to lose and lose big time.
It seems like you're right. I mean, today we just seen where Robert Kennedy Jr. just announced that he's running for president of the United States as a Democrat, which means he's trying to challenge the president, Joe Biden, and try to get the nomination away from him. I don't think he can, but I found that pretty significant, though, that he's loved and hated, I guess. What's your thoughts about Robert Kennedy Jr. getting in this?
Well, he's loved and hated. That's a pretty good description there. But
he's loved and hated. I mean,
well, you have characters like him
yep.
with newer ideas, right? It's almost like with President Biden. Some people find some sort of They find issue with him, even on the Democratic side. They find issue with him, right? And he's it's his. I think it's his frailty in some of those decisions that he's not making, causing people not to have confidence. It's almost like he's not doing anything. And when he does do something, it falls in line with some of the old stuff that we've seen over again that does not work. Well, all the while, relationships are very fragile. Very fragile. So much so that France is going rogue. The UK is stepping up. They're starting to make decisions for the rest of the allied portions of the world. We're going to have heavy dependence upon the UK's Space Command, right? People are going to start hearing a lot about Space Command here lately. All sorts of Space Commands you never heard of. They're going to hear a lot about that. The Pentagon is not very... they have to serve, of course, he's commander in chief, but you have a lot of folks in there that, they find things questionable as far as where the country's going, right? Even with the UK, we're pouring money into the UK, and for what reason? Why the USA? Why not the other countries? Is what everybody is asking. We're going through, a sort of a refacing here in America, yet we're giving away all this money, and all the other nations are throwing nickels at the situation, right? They have the resources, they just won't do it. And it's just not a good situation. We do not have a strong position on the world scene right now.
No, we don't.
And in large, part of that is due to leadership. I think even President Biden is aware that he may not be doing enough, but he knows that if he moves too far, people are going to dig up some dirt on that family, and I think that's what he's trying to avoid, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he doesn't have legal issues,
right?
He's been there for a long time, but believe me, things are beginning to surface all around the place, and so things are getting pretty hectic. My issue with that whole thing is that it causes the USA to be stagnant, ineffective. People, they've lost their confidence in the US dollar and the USA. Because if we can't govern our own people, why would somebody invest in the dollar? Why would they do that?
They won't.
If we can't run our own country. And right now, the USA in everybody's eyes looks like a dysfunctional family.
Because it
what it looks like.
Because it is.
It is.
I thought back for a minute. If I was another nation right now, I would really say, I don't know if I would ever want to do a deal with America, because if we get 4 years, we get one ideology, and then 4 years, the next 4 years, we get something totally opposite. We
can't go anywhere.
And they undo the deals that they sign.
Right.
So why, it's so inconsistent. Why, at least with Putin or with Xi, you know where you stand with them. You know what their plan is. You know what they don't really change it. They just keep running. You don't like it, but you know where you stand. You know what they're about. You know what they believe. You know how they'll treat you. With the United States, you don't know what you got, and this shows you the weakening of America, the lack of. We have no consistency on a world stage. We have no consistency. So who wants to do business with that? We're tearing ourselves apart. Isn't that right?
Well, you know what's happened? The government is losing its influence, and the corporations are taking over.
You're right.
Check into that. You're going to see corporations start to do negotiations.
I was going to.
They're already doing it. They're going to do negotiations with a lot of overseas companies and a lot of overseas governments. This is happening already.
I mean, it's one of the
things. That's why we're going to have a council in America.
Exactly.
This is going to undo the Constitution because of its ineffectiveness, right? So part of this is almost like a spiritual setup, just to usher in an overlord, if you will, right? We have become dysfunctional. And if anybody ever wonders how in the world can all of the elements of revelation take place and the USA is absent, well, I believe that we're seeing part of it right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing us turned in on each other. We can't do anything externally because nobody can agree.
Yeah, nobody has
to cost us.
Nobody has to take us over necessarily. We've already we've stifled ourselves. So now prophecy's fulfilling itself out there in the rest of the world because the America is AWOL. We're non-existent. We don't show up. We're not showing up.
No.
We don't have a border. Or look at our southern border. Look at this situation. Who in the world? I mean, and I was watching Ted Cruz drilling Mayorkas the other day, and I mean, the guy won't even admit he's got a problem down there, and he's in charge. It's insane. So, I mean, and we got 100,000 kids, dying a year from fentanyl. We've got jihadis and everybody in the world crossing the border that are setting up sleeper cells, and we have trains derailing every other day now, and nobody's talking about the T word, terrorism. I think you brought
No, they
that
won't.
up.
Because you know what, I hate to say this, but Pastor Paul, I cannot help but to think we have a convergence coming up in many different aspects, not only holy days and appointed days of these other religions, that they're converging. Even at the same time of that convergence, we have a planetary alignment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sunday morning. Isn't that odd?
Isn't
But
that
not
odd?
only that, but we also have the what do they call it? They call it the eye of Aquarius or something like that. It's supposed to be on Sunday morning. Is also supposed to show itself, meaning the first signs of the age of Aquarius will show Sunday morning too. As for the people that are wear the cone hats in astrology, but we have that coming up this entire time. All this stuff happening. Two things are being lost in my humble opinion. Is the spiritual fight that's at hand right now, right?
Yep.
It's a serious spiritual fight. There's some creepy things coming about, right? Australia is part of the creepiness factor, big time. South America is part of the creepiness factor, big time. And
well, what do you mean by creepiness?
Pastor, they brought out this UFO stuff for a reason.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And every believing Christian out there ought to know that their children don't see eye to eye with our generation, right? The way we believe. I can't say every Christian, but there's one generation that will see with a sober mind. But these kids, this younger generation, people who are 20, I would say 27 and younger, they have an entirely different ideology. I mean, entirely different. People are going to hear about communication, government communication with something out there. I'm just forewarning everybody. Yes. It's going to mess everybody up. And it's not going to be some fake thing either. See, that's one of the problems. Anything that's put out in the public and it stays out there for years, how in the world can it be true? How can the world have the truth of anything when nothing that the world ever had ever came to fruition? Not one thing ever came to fruition. And so when something is out there and that hangs out there, that's disinformation. They want people to believe that what's coming is not real, right? So that it will have a shock and awe effect, so that people will become subservient. We have to keep in mind that Satan is not going to do Satan any good to just kill us. If he kills us, and we're true believers, we're going to be with the Father. No, he wants us to convert. He wants us to switch sides, to go against Christ. He wants to, it's almost like he wants to stop the coming of the Messiah by causing all of us to become perverted, right? Amen. Because if the Messiah does not come back, he can still reign on the earth.
Yes.
He's going to erect his kingdom. It will be cast into darkness, but we're going to go through a process throughout all of this. In the spiritual, if all these events in the world, they are so rooted in reality that it's almost hard to think that there's something spiritual behind it for the average person. You can see it. There are certain people out there that can see it, but for the vast majority of people, it seems like it is so rooted in reality, causes a person to forget what type war this actually is. And then when the real underground things come up, right?
Yes.
That's going to mess everybody up because fear will take over, right? When fear takes over a person, that's like paralysis. That person becomes ineffective. They can't make sober decisions. They become ineffective.
So you're saying that the alien agenda will bring deception, but at the same time, people are, when they do have the when they deal with the actual demons, the fallen angels, the real the dark things, the creepy things that are coming, the wickedness, they're going to be stunned because they're already being deceived. As you see this disclosure as a way of deception, bringing a
Sure, it
stronger.
is. Of course, it is. Or the world is, Pastor Paul. This was actually all this UFO stuff was mentioned back in the 30s. But all of it was mentioned back in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah,
While everybody's looking to see what's coming from above, I can assure you something is coming from beneath. People don't, they won't expect that.
yeah,
They
they
won't
just
expect
don't
that.
expect that.
There are hints of it. There are some wealthy people who try to get the truth out there, right?
Yep.
But when they try to communicate this, you have to know certain elements to figure out what they're talking about. Most people don't. Like CERN, for example. CERN has found something. You better believe they're going to tamper with time, right? They know things about time they haven't shared with anybody. They know how to cause something to instantly decay, right? Can you imagine putting a plant, right, in front of a field and it decays 30 years right in front of your face and just dies, all the life sucked out of it, right? Can you imagine that? Could you imagine a weapon where you can actually put this field to a crowd and that crowd would age 30 years? Can you imagine
What?
that? Now, whoever could do that, who has power against something like that?
Nobody.
And because they have space-based platforms for these energy weapons, they have them all throughout space. If somebody got a hold of this, they would practically subdue everything in the world and we're not talking about time travel like somebody going back to the Future or something like that. No, we're talking about individuals having an ability to cause your cellular decay to speed up by 30 years, right? Instantly, causing your organs to age 30 years, causing grass and trees and plants and wood and stone and everything, right, to age 30 years. Whoever has that weapon, who's going to stand against that?
You know, the
You
Bible.
could take a whole army and make it old in seconds, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to do a thing.
I mean, you know, it says in the book of Revelation 13, when this beast rises, it says, and he makes war with the saints, but then it also says that, and who can make war against him? Who can fight against him? In other words, he is in some kind of advantage and leverage over the whole world that nobody can fight against him. He has some type of control, some type of weapon type control. Maybe it's what you're saying, the technology of advanced time or time dilation or time expansion or whatever the terminology is. I don't know. I don't know, but it does say that in the Bible. It's prophesied by John in Revelation 13. It says this.
Well, you have to tamper with time to do what they're doing there. And when people discover, when they learn about what CERN just found out about, Pastor Paul, they found something major. I mean, major.
Yeah, I had a guy. Let me ask you this. I was preaching last Wednesday night at Jim Baker's on a Wednesday night. They asked me to preach. Okay, so I did. There's a big crowd. They had a great crowd there. We had a great service. Service ended, and a man walked up to me and said, "I am a molecular scientist." And my friends, most of all my friends are scientists and different types of scientists, some of which who have worked at CERN and some who are still working at CERN. And what you don't know, Pastor, is they are ready to pierce the veil. They already know how. They're 1/64th of an inch, okay? He goes, I'll just say it to you that way. The only reason they aren't doing it is they're afraid of what's on the other side. They're trying to communicate right now with that's on the other side to let them do this, to let them and not harm them. This is what's going on. And I said, what in the world are you saying? He goes, no, it's another dimension. You don't understand. They know there's something on the other side. They're afraid of it. But they're going to do it. They're going to do it. So help me, Mike. What in the world's this guy saying here?
Well, they know that from CERN stems from another project that the military and the Germans helped out with, something they were able to look into, right? So particle physics as a whole, yes, it has its public face, and they study things in a standard model, the nuclear force, weak force, all these different forces. But they have actually now found another force, a force that did not match anything they thought. This happened beyond their wildest imaginations, right?
Okay.
But of course, in this other, you're dealing with a total different set of rules here. The standard model covers physics that we're used to, right? There is another model. This model is not the standard model. This model describes everything people see in the skies. You know how things wink into existence and wink out?
Yeah.
You know how you dream, and sometimes when you dream something, that same thing will happen. Or people in your dreams you end up meeting in the future, or deja vu, something like that, right? All these things are explained with this new model. Also, fuel, nobody would have to use fuel anymore. It's kind of like those glass batteries they have, right? They have a glass battery. You give it a 10-minute charge, and that charge will last for about, I don't know, it'll last about a week or something like that. In fact, Elon Musk redid his entire battery architecture. He's using a portion of this, and you can literally charge one of those cars, and it will go 3,400 miles off a 10-minute charge. Okay, that's efficiency. But what that is it's not 0-point energy, right? That's not what that is. They have found an efficient way to extract electrons, protons, and things like that we use off something extremely tiny. I mean, something the size of a sugar cube powering the U.S. for about 500 years with no emissions. That changes everything.
Okay, so
right?
they have found
everything.
that at CERN? You're saying that they have found...
Yes.
Well, when are they
They're going to extract it?
Yeah, they're going to extract that. They're going to bring that forward. Is there...
Well, they're already doing. They did a small piece of it, but there was an issue. There was a problem. Whenever CERN makes these discoveries, whenever they do this, there's always some spatial event. There's always some atmospheric event. There's a consequence every time they do this, right? And we're not talking about having multiple collisions. We're talking about when they produce a very special type of exotic matter that only lasts for about probably about a 64th of a millionth of a second or something like that. By the way, that number you said that this guy said is in fact an actual measured distance of the veil that they have to breach. Do you know that? They actually have the measurement of the veil.
So when he said a 64th of an inch,
that's how much more they have to go. They actually have the measurement of the veil. They actually have that. So they know exactly what the veil is. They know exactly what's on the other side.
Yeah.
They had a project that was a military project where they could actually look into the other side.
Yeah.
The problem was that when people looked into this, the rumor was their hair they just turned gray. Yeah. It's almost like the life was sucked out of them.
They're scared. He said that to be, they were
scared to pieces.
He said they're absolutely so afraid of what,
because can you imagine standing near that collider, right? And as soon as it collides for about 2 seconds, you're in a whole different reality, and then it goes back to normal. That mess you up after a while.
Yeah, that would, I would say, whoa, what are we doing?
But there are a lot of people there that have, they have those experiences. In fact, they have a lot of experiences around that.
So we're dealing with the dark side here.
That's going to spread. When they start doing this, Paul, they've already calculated that will expand out thousands of miles, thousands. That means it will likely engulf quite a few of us. Now, there's no physical effect to that. There's a mental effect to that, right?
It's a spiritual effect too, isn't it? I mean,
that's right.
It's demonic. I mean, we're dealing with something that we can't control, and it can control us.
Right. That's right. And you know what it reminds me of? That it's that one scripture where it says God will smite the horses with blindness and the riders with madness.
Yeah, it does say that.
With madness, and they would turn and just fight anybody around them, which means If a person were put in that predicament, they would no longer see the people around them as people. There's no telling how they would see an individual, but it would likely scare them to pieces. China will probably do the exact same thing. They already know about it because they've given CERN, they've contributed to CERN quite a bit as far as knowledge. Pastor Paul, but we're getting into that's something that all of us are going to eventually have to deal with, which is going to fracture people's minds. People will go absolutely crazy during that time. We're not doing too good now. So anything that tip that is going to really cause some real problems in this world.
Yeah, it really is. And I do remember that scripture. I have to look it up. I thought it was Ezekiel, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's Joel. But anyway, wherever it's at, it's in the Old Testament. He does say that he would strike them, with the horses with blindness, and the men riding them would go mad with madness.
Yeah. And if the horses are blind, of course they use vehicles. That means no GPS, no none of that.
Right. It shuts that off. Right.
All that's gone. But then a person going mad, that's a different story. Instantly going mad where they turn and attack whoever's beside them, their own brothers, families, whatever the issue is. That's pretty serious. I just thank God that it's not the believers. That will not touch the believers, because we're promised to see the demise or the downfall of the wicked. So nobody escapes wickedness, but we still are the last line of defense.
There we go. It's in Amos.
We are. The world right now, they can't do it. The world can't coordinate anything. Have you seen it? They can't. No. The USA can't. They need prayer. I strongly believe that if more people would pray concerning these leaders, then God would do to them what he did to Pharaoh. God hardened Pharaoh's heart and demonstrated to Israel those miracles. If Pharaoh would have said, "Go ahead, Moses, take your people," the people would not have seen the demonstration of the Most High. And you know how a lot of people say, well, these things in the world are orchestrated. You better believe it, but not by mankind.
No.
Not by mankind.
No.
This is by the Father, because he's going to wake us up first. He's got to secure us first. And one day we're not going to fight each other anymore, right? We're not going to disagree anymore either, because the Holy Spirit is one truth, not 5 different truths. And when we speak that one truth, then all of us are in tune with the Spirit, and we will be secured that way. I believe that day is coming also, because we're gonna see a whole lot, yes, but then that will release us from holding so much that we shouldn't be holding in the first place.
Here's the scripture for you, Mike. It is Zechariah 12. It says, This is when Jerusalem is almost under siege. I mean, it's become a cup of trembling. The whole world's coming against it. And in verse 4, it's Zechariah 12:4 says, "In that day, and the Lord said, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness. And I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness." So, as you said, we're driving cars. We lose our GPS. We lose our planes. We lose the GPS. Can't fly them. Can't land them. And people go mad.
And didn't the Lord say he caused man's imaginations to take them? He would take them in their own craftiness.
Yes.
Didn't he say that?
Yes.
So all this stuff they're working on, that they're working on weapons to destroy themselves.
Yes.
If God takes them in their craftiness or what they're able to build and what they're able to do, then everything they have built for evil and iniquity and all these things, they're building their own destruction. That's kind of comical, actually, but that's the way the Lord works.
It really is. It's crazy, but that is exactly. The Lord basically gives us enough rope to hang ourselves. We have the right, we have the freedom to choose good and evil. And if we choose the evil, well, the Bible says, for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God's eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. So, yeah, we can choose which path we want to go in life. We can. Yeah. We have no one else to blame.
I pray people choose now.
Amen.
But surprises are coming. I wouldn't, surprises are coming, Pastor Paul. And we've got there is one major issue, Pastor Paul. I failed to mention this.
Okay.
One of the big, ginormous volcanoes at in Indonesia, in Sumatra, Indonesia, there's a problem there because there are more cracks seen under the water, right? Africa just cracked again yesterday.
Okay.
The Grand Canyons has two splits. Two splits happened in the Grand Canyons where the sand actually gave away. The USGS is going to be on site there in the next couple of days. And in California, they have severe problems under the water. All right, there are GOD formations taking place.
Is that down in
Right
San
there
Diego?
at the coast of California. Yes, at the coast, right there where that bulge is, near that dome where everybody says, oh, there's a dome right outside of one place is Catalina Island.
Yeah.
The other place is going down a bit lower than that. And then we have one more issue right below Florida near Cuba under the water, right? Now, I've seen the alarms, the geo alarms have been going off in these places from some rumbles underneath there, right? And those are vibrations of actual crustal movement. That's going to cause some issues. So I wouldn't be surprised if, along with some of the evacuations that have been taking place and some of the smoke that's been coming up off the coast of California, Australia is going to see a little bit around Indonesia and those places. They're going to see some smoke coming out of the water.
Smoke coming out of the water.
Smoke coming out of the water. It wouldn't be the first time, but not on this scale, because one of those monsters is 37 miles long, 27 miles wide, and that's pretty big, right?
It's huge.
That's giant, because we have 5 giants in the world we have to deal with, and every single last one of them, well, they're awake. As of 2023, they are. Oh, well, as of 2022, they were awake. So 2023, this is going to be a different year for us.
So you're saying there's 5 monster super volcanoes
showing activity
right now.
They're actually showing activity. And I believe the USGS is going to put out another warning about California.
Yeah.
And the Grand Canyons.
So Southern California, for the most part, and the Grand Canyon, and that fault line, it runs all the way down there, and then we have to worry also about the cocoa plate.
Yeah, because that's where the plug is. That's where the corkscrew is. It's holding everything together.
And why does Puerto Rico keep having so many earthquakes? I mean, it never stops. Every day for like the last 3 years.
Because the Ring of Fire is on fire. Right, it's really on fire, and when we start seeing the troubles in off the coast of Japan, because we're going to see a lot of activity in that place here shortly. Well, then we'll know, because a lot of people will see smoke coming up from those places, and in the Atlantic, it just won't. Colorado has a problem also. They have one that's 22 miles wide, 62 miles long. It's a volcano out there, right?
Yeah.
And it's cracking. It's starting to crack too. So these
is this because the magma? It's all this magma that's rising. This crustal displacement going on, and
I believe it's a combination of a few things. The magma certainly is moving. Pressures are building. They haven't stopped. Africa's about to have this is year 6 actually of Africa changing. They will eventually. Africa's going to split. It's starting to split right now, and a brand new ocean will be in Africa here. Give it another year, people will see that continent's going to split, period. Every single day that crack grows. In the Atlantic, the crack is growing. Indonesia, same issue. That's Lake Tepon, Lake Tupo.
Yeah.
Karagach, or what is it? Gotch, I'm probably not saying that right, but that place has some issues. The Caldera in Colorado.
And Mike from the World just went out. Of course, he's exposing a lot of areas that have significant concerns, which is something you really can't find out there. And that might have been it. Maybe he's gone. he's talking about some serious areas tonight. Southern California. He's talking about Africa. He's talking about Indonesia. He's talking about different places in the world. Big cauldrons. He called them. There's 5 big super volcanoes that are showing serious activity, and so we need to keep our eyes open on all that. I want to thank Mike for being with us tonight. Again, powerful information. I really want to thank him. But it looks like somebody said Mike is done for the night. Well, listen, we are in the end times. We're in the last days. And the Bible told us that there'd be all of these events taking place. There would be wars and rumors of wars. Jesus said there'd be nations. He said false Christ and false prophets will rise, and they will deceive, and they will deceive many. And the Bible says that there'll be wars and rumors of wars. And see that you be not troubled, because all these things must come to pass. The end is not yet. And nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and famines, pestilence, earthquakes in divers places will certainly be there. So we're having them all. Persecution, we're having it all. And people are still not ready. As I was preaching earlier before Mike came on, the born-again message is the truth. The gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ and the return of Christ. And that is the good news. That is the gospel. That's the good news. The bad news is not everybody will accept the good news. But if you will call upon the name of the Lord, you can be saved tonight. I'm going to play a song. There was almost 5,000 people with us on our backup YouTube channel, and almost 2,000 people with us live over at Rumble, and then probably 2,000 to 3,000